Aloha and welcome to Season 2, Episode 3 of That Time I Got Arrested. Hey guys, how are you? I'm awful. Thank you so much for asking. Sometimes it doesn't get better. I'm on a downward spiral of heartbreak and regret, so I'm just like not doing well, even though everything in my life is like awesome and perfect, and I live in a first world country, and I'm grateful to just have the ability to walk and breathe. I'm still miserable. Duality is a thing. So I would like to take a moment to practice some gratitude and good things, because focus on the good things, right? Don't kill yourself, or, kill yourself, whatever. I want to say a big, huge thank you to Sally, Gratefully Sally. She has an Etsy shop called Gratefully Sally, and she makes really fucking cool hats, and I have one, and I bought one from her like 2 years ago because she likes cheese and I like cheese, and I needed a hat that like had something with string cheese on it. And I love this hat so much, and we just became friends on Facebook because I bought this hat and I told her how much I loved it, and then she started listening to the podcast and she likes it. And if you're listening to this, I think that you like it, and I think that you might like the stuff that Sally makes. So I'm gonna leave a link to her Etsy shop in the synopsis description box for this episode, and if you guys would go check her shop out, give it a like on Facebook and Instagram, that'd be so cool, because she's cool, and it's cool for artists to support other artists. Are you an artist? Do you listen to this podcast? Would you fucking write me a letter and a review, and I will, promote you? And I would like to start this like culture where we're all just like nice and cool. Yeah, that'd be so tight. Speaking of nice and cool, Kalina Ote, I just met that girl in real life for the first time and was a guest on her podcast last night. And she's dope and like really sweet and genuine, and has this really fucking cool and disgusting podcast called Cringeworthy that I'm a guest on. And if you want to hear some stories that are awful but about not getting arrested, then please check that out. Check my episode out. Check her podcast out. Do all those things that you do when you like show someone love and support. And another one, also, we're going to be doing like a cross breed of all of these podcasts. So Kalina and Mike are both going to be guests on my podcast, and I was a guest on both of their podcasts. What? This is like a Center for Nepotism and Incest. Yay! But yeah, so I was just a guest on Mike O'Keefe's podcast called Multiple Idiots, where I interviewed to be a groomsman for his impending nuptials. And if you want to see if I made the cut, please listen to my episode on his podcast, and also listen to his podcast, because he's really funny. He's like, honestly, for real funny. Like, sometimes I think maybe I'm funny on accident, but he's funny on purpose all the time, and you should check it out. Also, you can check us out on Instagram or Facebook. Speaking of Facebook, if people are like trying to friend me on Facebook and I'm not accepting, it's just because I don't know you. So if you listen to the podcast and you're trying to find me on Facebook, write me a message and let me know, because I am friends with like my grandparents and my family and like those people on Facebook. So I try not to have like a bunch of strangers on there on my page and whatnot. So don't take it personal. Just write me a message. Tell me that you are a listener of the podcast, and I would be happy to accept your friend request. So you guys, this episode is a little less dark than the one you heard last week, and hopefully, you can just see how vast and layered all of these experiences were for me, because this episode is about the people that I met and the stuff that I did, because I was in Cook County for 3.5 months, and I met a lot of fucking people, and I had a lot of crazy, weird experiences, and I want to tell you about them. So if you want to listen, hang on and stick with me, and I love you, and heartbreak sucks. So, if you're feeling that way, I'm feeling that way. Let's feel that way together. Goodbye. My name is B. Casper, and my entire life has been a lie. That's not even my real name. But don't worry, I'm going to tell you all of my secrets. This isn't the story of how I became an orphan. This isn't the story about how I jumped off a 5-story building and survived. This isn't about how I died and came back funny. this is that time I got arrested. I've never told anyone this stuff before. I've never told anyone this stuff before. I didn't talk about this in therapy. I didn't talk about this at any point in my life with any single person, not even Hannah, just because why? What's to talk about? Why are we going to talk about this stuff? This sucks. And this isn't like a good, happy memory. These are all things that I would like to forget. But these things happened. These things actually happened. So I guess I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you about these things that happen to me and these people that I meet because maybe, I don't know, is this interesting? Is anyone fucking listening to this podcast? Is this interesting to anyone? Time is a funny thing when you're in prison. A whole day feels like a year. So you can bond with someone, you can fight with someone, you can destroy relationships, and you could watch someone die right in front of you. And that's just one fucking day. My first roommate, my first time meeting anyone outside of being processed was Dawn. And Dawn was really funny and really interesting in the fact that she had had this crazy life of being a prostitute and being a meth addict and having 2 children and being engaged and running away from her children for like 10 years and then sort of coming to her senses and getting off meth and finding another guy and trying to get back in her children's lives. And she would talk about her kids all day long, and she would talk about how young and naive she was, and she would talk about, oh my gosh, I asked her so many questions about prostitution. It was fascinating to me. She specialized in something called Greek, which was anal sex, and she would make like $3,000 to $10,000 a day, and she would just blow it all on fucking crack and meth and living in a high-rise building in Chicago and having this like crazy, fancy, expensive life, but also being a prostitute. And she had gotten arrested for something completely different and had cleaned up her life. So it was really interesting to meet her at this stage where she was sort of a grown-up now, but she wasn't, done making mistakes, I guess. I don't know if that whole Chantix and trying to kill her fiance was a mistake, because that dude loved her. He would write her letters and send her books, and he would come visit her, and he did everything that he could to make her experience less horrible. And that really happens when you have someone on the outside who's like, hey, I fucking care about you, and I'm not going to forget about you, and you're not like a piece of shit because you're in jail, which is how they very much make you feel every minute of every day. So if you know anyone who's in prison or in jail, or I don't know, just like reach out to those people, because that sucks. That is the worst experience that a human being can have, is to be locked in a cage and treated like an animal and a subhuman. Anyways, so Dawn introduced me to these group of girls that she would sit and eat with. And our schedule throughout the day was called 23-1, which would mean we would spend 23 hours inside of our cell and 1 hour outside of it. So we were in our cell in the morning, and we were let out for about 15 minutes to eat breakfast. And then we were back in our cell and for a couple more hours, and then we'd be let out at like 10 a.m. to get our medication. And then we were back in our cell for a couple of hours. Then we'd be let out for free time, and that was about 90 minutes. And then we were back in our cell. We have lunch in our cell, and then by 5 or 6 p.m., they give you your second round of meds. And so you're out of your cell for about 3.5 minutes, and then back in your cell for a couple more hours until dinner time. And then you're let out of your cell for about 15 minutes. And then that's it. That's your whole fucking day. So those times when you would get out of your cell, they were valuable and important. And it was like the only time of day that you could connect with another human being. So, I mean, I had books, sure, but you can't just like sit in a box and read all day. I mean, I probably could, and I did actually, but those 15 minutes, those 30 minutes, those 90 minutes of being out of the cell and like being able to like talk to other human beings, like, whoa, that was crazy. Those experiences were intense. Those conversations were intense, and those relationships became very intense. And women's jails are very different than men's jails because men will just fucking punch you in the face. Women will destroy you from the inside out. You know what I mean? You get hit way less in a women's jail, but like, this is definitely like, it's not that it doesn't happen. It's just that this happens more. So Dawn introduced me to her group of friends, the girls that she would sit with every day. And one of them was this girl named Amanda. And she was like a stud lesbian. So she had shaved like sides of her hair, and then the top, she had like a long ponytail that she would slick back, and she had blonde hair and a septum ring, and she had tattoos all over her body, and across her knuckles she had the tattoo called Fat Lips, like PHAT lips. And she had a little bit of a crush on me. She was really super friendly to me, like right away. She wanted to know everything about me. She thought I was smart. She thought I was funny. And it was nice to have someone be nice to me. But the relationship quickly turned uncomfortable. There aren't a lot of boundaries in a situation like that because you're having all of this really intense forced intimacy. So it went from her being like, sit next to me, to being like, take a shower with me, to her like putting her hand on my leg and making me feel kind of like uncomfortable, like I would if I was with a guy and he was like making a pass at me, but we were friends. And I just was like, bro, friend zone. What? What are you doing? And one day she had this friend from the outside get arrested. And Amanda was this meth addict who was homeless, and she had been raped several times, and she was in there for shoplifting whiskey because she would sell whiskey to bodegas on the south side that she would steal for money, and she'd take that money and she'd buy meth, and then she'd just walk around the city all day and be high on meth. And that's just what she loved. That was who she was and what she wanted to do with her time. And she didn't apologize for it. And she wasn't exactly trying to get clean. Even though she realized that it was ruining her life, it was still an active choice that she was making because that was just what she liked. And I respect that. And I think that she liked that I respect that, even though honestly, I mean, I wasn't into that kind of lifestyle, and I didn't think that that was what life was about. But I respect that anyone can do whatever the fuck that they want with their life, because that's what I'm trying to do too, right? So her friend Diana joined us in this little gaggle of mean girls that would sit and eat together in prison for 15 minutes during our dinner time. Diana was different. She was a stripper, and she had a sugar daddy, and she would let Amanda stay with her sometimes. And they were having this conversation about how they were going to get out, and they were going to manipulate this guy to buy them a bunch of meth so that they could like binge out really hard when they eventually got out, which would be pretty soon because they were both in there for like dumb shit. Like Diana violated her probation that she was on, and Amanda got busted for shoplifting. So we're talking about like a couple of months, you know, a couple of weeks even. And Amanda ended up getting released pretty soon after on furlough. But before that happened, when we were having this conversation together during our lunch hour, they were talking about manipulating this guy for money. And like, I was just like, that's dumb, you guys. And I just told them that that was dumb. And Amanda and I had spent, you know, in the last like week or two, you know, getting to know each other, telling each other secrets, spending, you know, as much time as we could just talking very intimately and intensely about our lives and our fears and our hopes and our dreams and, you know, what we were thinking and what we wanted. And I knew that she was on this cycle of like destruction and like hate. And I know that it wasn't like my problem. So it's not like I was trying to convince her to change. But I mean, when I heard them talking about it, my natural reaction to that scenario was, that's dumb. That's a waste of your time. It's not a good idea. You guys should get a fucking job and like deal with your life, you know, and stop, I don't know, walking around being like homeless all day. I guess I just thought Amanda was like better than that. So I was really coming Is that so fucking funny and dumb of me to say? Like, this is why I'm a fucking bitch. Because I tell her that she's dumb, but I'm like, but I'm coming from a place of love, you know? Like, what do I know, really? What do I know? I'm in jail too. But I said, that's dumb. And Amanda said, fuck you. And then I, like a fucking bitch, said, you wish. I mean, I was a mean girl in high school too, a little bit. Actually, no, that's not true. I was a mean girl in junior high, and I grew out of that really quickly because I saw how hurtful and damaging that was. I like hurt one girl's feeling in 8th grade that I used to be friends with, and then I felt bad about it for the rest of my life. I feel bad about it today. Fucking Nicole in 8th grade. I am so sorry that I told everyone that you smelled bad. Honestly, even though I like apologized to her, we like went on our end of year like field trip to a water park, and I apologized to her like after that day, but I fucking was mean to her and it made me feel shitty for the rest of my life. So I really wasn't coming from like a, hey, fuck you, you're a dumb, worthless bitch place. I was just like, that's dumb. But then she was like, fuck you. And I was like, yeah, you wish. Because I like knew that she wanted to fuck me. And I was like, not trying to do that. I think that probably triggered something inside of her where she had felt embarrassed or insecure or sort of just rejected. I mean, I think that's how anyone would feel if someone said that to you. And she got really upset. She got really upset and she like grabbed me by the throat and slammed me against a wall because we were in jail and she was a meth addict and a homeless person. So like the way that she responded to that situation of someone just like saying something snarky and like rude to you was pretty intense. And needless to say, our friendship was over after that. And I was quite plainly told that I could not sit with them anymore, which was fine. It was fine. But I mean, I felt bad about that. And she would end up getting furloughed very shortly after. And then she came back maybe like 3 weeks later. She had skipped out on her furlough and they caught her and she came back and she was high as a kite. So the next time I saw her after that was about 3 weeks later. She came back and she was on meth. And it was like meeting a completely different person because when I met her originally, she was sober and had been sober for like a couple of weeks. So it had been out of her system. And then I saw the real version of her, the person that she was on the outside. And it scared me and it made me so sad. And it made me feel weird and kind of like I realized that the way that I evaluated people and relationships and the way that I spoke to people and the way that I processed things at that moment, I was like seeing her on meth and I'm like, oh, I have to like change something about how I'm experiencing other human beings while I'm in this situation. So the next character in this play, her name is Doris. Doris was 55 years old and she was someone who had suffered from quite a few strokes. She had also been coming to Cook County Jail since she was 18. So she was 55 and she had been there since she was 18. So every single person who was on the staff not only knew her, but they knew her the entire time that any of them had ever worked there. She had been at this prison longer than any of the fucking employees. How crazy is that? And she had suffered multiple strokes and she had a very hard time speaking and she was very loud and wild and crazy. And don't forget, I'm on the mental health unit of the jail. And I'm with all the people that are out of their goddamn minds. And Doris wasn't even out of her mind, but she was definitely out there. Doris was serving a year in Cook County Jail for shoplifting. I think she was like stealing deodorant. She was homeless and she had 7 children. And while she was in jail serving that time, she lost a son her, I think, second eldest had been killed in like a gang violence, gun, something like that. And I watched this like loud, crazy woman like crumble under the weight of something. I don't feel like there's anything worse than being a parent and losing a child. I feel like that's the worst thing that can really ever happen to anyone ever. And I watched that happen to her while she was in jail. And fuck, I mean, like, I kind of have like a bleeding heart to begin with, but I hated Doris. Honestly, I hated her. I thought she was loud and annoying and ignorant and selfish and rude. And I didn't see anything like good or cool about her. And then I watched her grieve. And I watched her grieve in jail, which is like the worst place to have anything go wrong ever in your life. I mean, everything's already wrong. So it's like to add anything on top of that and to be locked in a cage where you can't do anything about it. Oh, man, there's nothing worse than that. So because she couldn't leave and go to her son's funeral, she wanted to write her grandson a letter and, I don't know, express how she felt and give her condolences and offer her love. And that's just like a normal thing that you would do when someone in your family, when your fucking child dies. But Doris didn't know how to read or write. She was completely illiterate and she was 55 years old. And I do know how to read and write, and I could see what she was going through, and she could tell that I don't know, like, I'm fucking dumb because I'm in jail, but like, am I smart because I sent myself a bunch of books every week, you know? But I mean, she saw me with books. She heard me speak full sentences, so she could, I guess the way that I spoke really struck a lot of the people that I had met in jail because they didn't know anyone like me, or they didn't often see people who spoke like I did, someone who, you know, had read books and been to college and had an SAT-worthy vocab. To them, I sounded like a doctor or like a teacher. That was the separation that they could sort of see. So Doris asked me to help her learn how to read and write. So after all of that stuff with Amanda happened, and I got excommunicated from that group of power lesbians, I started sitting with Doris, and I would spend all of my free time teaching her how to read and write. And we wrote this letter to her grandson and sent it out. And then I never saw her again. And that was just one person that I had this weird, intimate experience with, and I don't even know her last name, and I don't know if she's alive or dead, and I've never seen her since. Shout out to Doris, man. Hope you are okay. Prison is like a revolving door, and as soon as one person leaves or gets moved or is transferred or ends up somewhere else for whatever reason, another person is replaced by them almost immediately because these jails are overcrowded and they're arresting a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. So you're constantly being surrounded by new faces. It's just like college, actually, except it's jail. So later, I would become close with this older 45-year-old white woman named Kim. And Kim was fucking interesting. This one, I think about her often, honestly, because she was crazy in a way that I think is so fascinating, because she was like the kind of crazy where she seemed super normal and was like very good at pretending that she was fine. But she was probably like one of the crazier people that I would meet during this entire experience. And I think that what I find so interesting about that is like that is really similar to me. I think that I seem so nice and normal to most people. I was just on Mike O'Keefe's podcast and he's like, "You're so well adjusted." And I'm like, I had to stop myself from killing myself last week when my boyfriend and I broke up. Like, what? I'm so well adjusted. You're crazy. Like, it's crazy that people think that I'm well adjusted because I'm hanging on by a thread every minute of every day. And like, if someone's like mean to me, I'm just like, well, I'm going to go jump off a building now. I mean, I'm laughing because I'm being hyperbolic, but like I do feel very sensitive all the time. And when someone like hurts my feelings, I take it so seriously and I take it so to heart. And it's so much harder for me to like bounce back from those experiences. And I don't think Kim was crazy in that way, but she was crazy in this way where she just seemed fine. She seemed so fucking fine all the time. And she would spin this wild story that had something to do with like cashing checks and that's why she was there. She was overweight and she had a lot of money and she had a lot of books and she wanted to play cards and she treated me like a pet. She wanted to brush and braid my hair and she wanted to talk to me all day because she recognized, you know, that I was also a human that could form sentences and it was very hard to have real cohesive conversations with a lot of the women that I would meet because they would be high or they would be crazy or they would just be illiterate or they just, you know, fucking hated me because I was like the white bitch that was stuck up. I mean, every single day for 11 months and 3 weeks, I had someone call me white bitch. And every single day, I had someone tell me to wipe that fucking look off my face, which I didn't even know that I like had a look off my face. Like, I don't know if I don't think I have resting bitch face. Erin, do I have resting bitch face? No, I really don't. I have like a pretty like neutral sort of like non-smile smile when I'm not forming words with my mouth. Like I don't frown. So I don't understand what they were talking about, but I think they just didn't like the way my face looked. So they wanted me to literally wipe my face off of my face, which I don't know if you realize that, but that's impossible to do. So Kim, this is so funny. Kim would not tell us like what she was in for. Like all the stories that she would sort of spin for us never made a whole lot of sense. And when Dawn got released, she like went online because she knew Kim's full name and she like looked her up and found out what she was actually there for. And this is crazy. So this bitch fucking owned like an addiction counseling therapy center. She owned like an office where they would like counsel people on addiction and mental health. And she was like the coordinator. She like ran it and owned it. And actually it was like a way for her to launder money from like insurance companies because she had no degree and no certifications and no one that worked for her was qualified to do that. And one of her patients ended up killing themselves with drugs. So she got in like a lot of trouble, but she spent $2.5 million of this like embezzled insurance money on fucking iPads for her like bratty kids and like North Face parkas and like driving a goddamn Lexus. She like came from money. So her parents hired this like shark lawyer. And in the end, she ended up getting less time than me for that. But what's really funny is that she got like a couple of years and then she got let out. And then like 2 years after she got let out, she ended up getting arrested again for check fraud. And I found this out because I fucking Googled her because I was just so fascinated by this person. I got a letter from Dawn with like a printout of all of the newspaper articles that were written about her and all of the charges that had been filed against her. And I confronted her because I was like, dude, like you sit with me for hours and talk to me every single day. Like, what is this all about? And she like cried and like said that I didn't understand. And I'm like, yeah, but you like said you were here for a completely different reason. And she was upset and I didn't really care. To be honest with you, like we're all in jail. Like what fucking difference does it make? Why would you try to impress me when we're in jail? But I think that when really crazy people are really crazy, the thing is like they they don't know that they're crazy. You know what I mean? Like, she couldn't fully accept or like acknowledge the fact that she was mentally unstable and insane, and kind of just like, what's the difference between being crazy and being a shitty person? Honestly, I don't know. I mean, are they the same thing? I'm not sure. While I was in lockup, I needed to busy my mind, and I couldn't just read all day. And I did read for maybe 10 to 12 hours a day sometimes, but there would also be moments where I would just need to busy my hands. I would need to busy my mind in a different way. I just wanted to take a walk. I'm like an outdoorsy person. I really love nature, and I really love hiking, and I really love camping, and I really love being outside. I love the sunshine on my face. I love the way wind feels against my skin. I love the way my feet feel in dirt. And I had a really hard time being locked in a cell for 23 hours a day, especially in the beginning. So about, I want to say like 2 months, roughly 2 months into being in Cook County and not being outside for 60 days, I broke. I lost my mind. And one day I just started screaming and crying, and I think the air was too stale, and I felt like my skin was going to come off, and I was on all of this medication, and I was also taking like illegal drugs on the side. So I was on a lot of pills, and I was stuck inside, and I was fucking sick of being there, and I was frustrated because I was supposed to get transferred to this prison, and everyone told me that it was better in prison, that you would get to go outside, that you would have more freedom and control, and that the food was better. And I would hear all of these like romantic stories about how great prison was. And I was just like wanting to get there so bad because Cook County was so awful. The food was just, ugh, can you imagine like bologna sandwiches for 3 meals a day? Even as a vegan, I got peanut butter and bread for 3 meals a day. That was rough, dude. That was, I mean, like, that's honestly, I feel shitty like complaining about how rough that is, because I know that like the larger portion of the rest of the world would be grateful and lucky to be like, whoa, you get 3 peanut butter sandwiches a day. So I have that sort of like awareness, but also living in a first world country, being white, never having to experience that sort of like food insecurity before, and then having to eat 3 peanut butter sandwiches a day when there was nothing else to really do to busy your mind. Like, food became the most exquisite distraction, and 3 peanut butter sandwiches a day. Oh, so I freaked out. I fucking freaked out one day. I just started crying and screaming and yelling, and I was ripping my hair out, and I was pulling at my clothes, and I was taking my sheets off of my bed, and I was throwing things, and I was throwing books, and I was just like scream crying, where you're like screaming and crying at the same time. And I'm in the mental health unit, so they paid attention to my freak out in the sense where they eventually sent me to a psychiatrist, and I just broke down and explained, you know, the type of person that I was. And I really tried to like be eloquent enough to garner some compassion from this stranger who was at the bottom of the barrel as far as their career was concerned. You think any fucking psychiatrist wants to work at the worst county jail in the entire country? Do you think that that's their first choice job? No, they couldn't get a job anywhere else. That's why they're there. So that's the sort of people that you're dealing with. And I'm trying to, you know, compassionately express where I'm coming from so that this human will like see me as someone who's suffering and needs help. And fuck Christ, that just happened. So this psychiatrist at this jail was like, okay, I think I have a solution for you. And we have this GED program in the jail, and you could potentially be a tutor. You just have to pass a test. And I was like, great, I'm so good at standardized tests. So I had to take basically a GED exam that could prove that I was like smarter than a 12th grader, which thankfully I was. And I was allowed to leave my cell now twice a week for 3 hours a day. 3 hours a day. That was more time than I got to spend out of my cell any other time. And I would go to a classroom and I would tutor all of these girls in math and reading and get them ready for their GED exam. And oh man, those tutoring sessions like kept me together, just like being able to like do algebra and geometry and having like a workbook and trying to get these, gang banging prostitutes to understand geometry and algebra. Like, oh my God, that was heaven. Can you imagine that? I mean, like, I don't think I know a lot of people that would be like, you did math in jail and that was fun. That was the best. Oh my God, that was what got me through that last month at Cook County. That and the paper cranes. So I started folding origami about a week or two into my stay because I was bored as fuck, and I read this book in 4th grade called 1,000 Paper Cranes, which was about this girl who got cancer from Hiroshima, and it's like this old Japanese tradition to fold 1,000 paper cranes and make this like big circle ball of them that you string them all together. And they do it for someone when they're sick, or they do it for weddings, or they do it for good luck, or you can do it for a wish. And I did it because I was fucking bored and I needed to move my hands. And if I tried to do yoga, they'd call me a witch. So, which is accurate, but they said it like, they called me a witch, like with the same sort of venom that you would call someone like a white bitch, like there's a certain tone to it that makes it so much more insidious when I'm like, don't you mean pagan? Someone who like worships nature? And they're like, no, you're a demon and we're going to crucify you. Kind of a witch, So I would fold these paper cranes, and I ended up folding maybe like 2,000 of them. I would cut out magazine pages and I would fold them into squares, and then I'd fold these paper cranes, and then I'd stick them on the windowsill of our tier. And it was funny because they kind of became this thing that I was known for in jail. I would just be the girl with the birds. Just the girl with the birds, the fucking crazy mental patient in the mental health unit with a bunch of fucking birds, and I'd sit them on the windowsill, and the guards let me keep them up there. And the warden even did a walkthrough one day of our tier, and we're not supposed to have anything hung up on the walls or any kind of decoration. And she saw those and she like nodded her head and sort of just like walked away. And it was like, damn, even you, bitch, like fucking birds in your heart. So one time someone snuck a gun into general population. I don't know how they fucking did it, but somehow they got a gun through security, through the strip search, through every fucking checkpoint that they take you through, from like getting to court or getting arrested to like inside the actual cells of where the prisoners are. And they snuck a gun in there. So the entire jail, the men's side, the women's side, everywhere was on lockdown for 13 days, which meant you didn't leave your cell at all for any reason. That means no tutoring, no meds, no dinner, no free time, no nothing. Everything happens in your cell. So that was really hard, especially for all of the fucking crazy people in the mental health unit. I mean, I went nuts after 2 months, and I'm just like the most well-adjusted person to ever go to prison, according to Mike O'Keefe, So if you can imagine me freaking out, like, damn, did these other bitches go crazy? So there was this one woman named Lisa. Oh my God. Lisa is the funniest motherfucker I have ever seen in my entire life. She was like this 6 foot tall Black woman who had like hair that she styled intentionally to look like one of those crazy troll dolls. She had boobs that were the size of basketballs. And she was like very slim, and she was mentally insane in the sense that she actually had schizophrenia, and she would like freak out and like yell at people that weren't there, and she'd like have these like very strange sort of wild and intense fits, and then she would turn around and like say something completely normal and completely hilarious. And it was like hard to tell if she was aware of the stuff that she was saying or if she was doing it on purpose, because it seemed like so seamless that it's just like, are you okay? But like she wasn't really okay, but she wasn't not okay either. She was a prostitute and she lived on the streets, and she was consistently arrested for prostitution, and she'd get taken in for like a week or two and then get released, and then taken in and then get released. And so I saw Lisa while I was there for 3.5 months, 3 different times. But one of the times she was there was during this lockdown. And if I fucking hated being locked down, fucking Lisa hated being locked down more than anyone. So once they like let us out to get our meds, and Lisa was just so fucking pissed and frustrated about being locked up. She took her arm and like swooped her arm down this windowsill and like kicked off all 2,000 of these like cranes that I had folded. And honestly, it was epic to watch like all these paper birds fly everywhere. And it made me gasp because I was like, just the selfish thought of like all of that like work. And it's not like these birds really like meant anything. It was just a way to pass time. But in the moment, I was just like, whoa, it felt weird. And then they like let me out of my cell so that I could take all these big black trash bags and fill them with birds and then throw them away. And they were like, if you want to keep any. And like, it was funny. A couple of other prisoners like asked me if they could keep some. One of the guards like asked me if they could keep one. It was weird. And it made me feel weird. And I don't even feel like Lisa did that intentionally, like to me, to like hurt me or like piss me off or anything. But like she did that out of frustration. And then like I did that out of frustration. So it's interesting how different people react to different things. And I would get fucked with a lot in jail. I would have girls tell me, all right, look, here's what it really is. There is something about me that like Black women in particular hate, especially when it's like a socioeconomic divide that's as noticeably wide as like if I'm sitting next to someone who has had every opportunity like taken from them their entire lives for as long as they have existed. I am like a living embodiment of the oppression that they have faced their entire lives. And I can totally see that on an intellectual level, but on a pragmatic level of being in the same situation and having to sit next to these girls and every day having them tell me to wipe that fucking look off my face, of calling me a white bitch, of coming up to me and seeing me while I'm holding a tray of food and flipping their arm under it so that it would fly everywhere, to checking me in a hallway, to tripping me, to telling me that I had diseases, to refusing to use the bathroom after me, to just telling me that I was dumb and that I sucked and that I was ugly, and just saying every fucking mean thing to say. And it's like, I'm giving you like really base, broad examples, but like these girls were specific and they fucking hated me and they would tell me every day. And it wasn't just like one group of girls. It was the same type of girl that I would meet over and over again, and she would have a different face and a different body, but she would say the same thing. So I think it was just me. I think I was just a target because I had it different than them, and you could tell. So I eventually got this roommate named Cinnamon, and Cinnamon was a prostitute, and a schizophrenic, and she was an alcoholic, and she was really sweet, and she was fucking gorgeous. She had no teeth, but she had the most beautiful caramel skin color with like an array of freckles over her nose and under her eyes. And she had really light, like brown eyes. And then she had short hair, and she just had this body that like wouldn't quit. I mean, like, fuck, I would pay her to have sex with me too. Like, I get it. And she had this pimp that she would call Big Papa. And I guess he was like her boyfriend, but he was also her pimp, and he was also schizophrenic, and they had lived together since she was like 12 or 13 years old, and she had been a prostitute her entire life, and she was constantly getting arrested for prostitution. And oh, here's a PS about prostitutes. Did you know that cops fuck the prostitutes before they arrest them? I never met a prostitute in jail who got arrested for prostitution who said that she didn't fuck the cop first. Not one. And let me tell you, I asked every single one that I met. Because when I heard it the first time, I was like, isn't that illegal? And then every single other girl that I met said the same thing. So let me just tell you, it's not a coincidence. Every prostitute that gets arrested for prostitution gets fucked by the police officer that's arresting them. Fun, right? So Cinnamon was my roommate, and she was like, I don't know why all these girls hate you. You're very sweet and nice, and you seem like a good person. So I don't know why everyone like hates you so much and is so mean to you. And I just like, yeah, me neither. And eventually what happened was I paid Cinnamon in food to protect me. And this is the first time that I ever did that. But she like asked me if I wanted her to be my bodyguard, and she would like get in between me and these other black girls that would like come up to me and like push me, and like, I don't know, like they'd like grab my hair, and they would just be really like rude and sort of invasive of my personal space. And she would get in between them, and she'd say, back up, back up, back up. And it was so like weird to watch, but it was honestly like so relieving, because that was the first time in that situation where I was like, whoa, like I'm not going to get fucked up right now, because this girl is going to like keep things even for me. And I know that like money talks. So without her even really offering to do that for like a direct exchange, I was like, you don't have any money. My stepmother is sending me $100 a week for commissary. Like, what can I buy you? She ended up only being in jail for like 10 days, but oh my gosh, that 10 days was like a breath of fresh air, because that was the first time since I had been there that I wasn't getting consistently fucked with every single minute of the day. So, man, shout out to Cinnamon. No idea what her real name is, but she was a fucking breath of fresh air in a cage. I would have a lot of girls come in and out of my cell. Sometimes they would only be there for a day or a couple of days. Or one time I had a cellmate that only lasted for about an hour. She came into my room at 4 a.m. and now I'm like done. I've been there for a while, and I sort of have an idea of the ropes. And she's this new girl that's just spent the last 15 hours getting processed and transferred from jails to courts to the prison itself. And she comes in, and I wake up and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Bed's over there. You know, like, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Like, I'm not done, about to go a mile a minute and ask her all of her life stories at 4 a.m. But she told me that she needed her medication, and that I needed to get it for her. And then if I didn't get it for her, that she was going to kill me. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, it's 4 a.m. Like, I've seen some crazy shit, but I'm still not used to people acting like that, or, you know, treating me like that. Like I said, you gotta break the mind first. And she eventually would start screaming at me and telling me that I needed to get her pills and that she was going to murder me. Told me she was going to cut my throat. And I was screaming for the guards and they weren't coming because they didn't fucking care. Until eventually she took her bed sheets that they had given her and wrapped them around my neck and strangled me until the guards eventually did come and pull her off me. And I never saw her again after that. I don't even know her name. I still have like a weird scar on my neck from where this girl strangled me. And I don't know her name. My craziest time with another inmate at Cook County was without a doubt Svetlana. Oh, Svetlana, man, that fucking girl fucked me up in my head. You know, like we didn't have a fight or like a bad experience, but I met this Barbie doll towards the end of my stay at Cook County. God, she was without a doubt the most beautiful woman that I have ever seen in real life to this day. She was 5'11". She was a tall drink of water. She had crystal clear blue eyes and white blonde hair. She was a stripper. She used to run guns, and that's not what she was there for, but that was like her profession. She was in some kind of gang that I don't know what, but it was like a gang that like sold illegal guns to other gangs on the south side. So like she sold guns to like all the different gangs, and she was the one that would like deliver the guns. So she was a fucking badass, and she had a huge tattoo of a black widow spider on the back of her neck. And she was like 22, 23 years old, and she was dating some 55-year-old limo driver / mobster. And she was a heroin addict. That part is important. So when she got into jail, and she was there for violating probation that she had gotten for some petty shoplifting charge, like from 2 years ago, she had stolen a Coach purse from Nordstrom because she was really high. She like didn't need to steal it. She had money, but she just like put it on her shoulder and like walked out because, you know, white people are so crazy. White people are so crazy. So she had this heroin problem, and she had smuggled all of this heroin in to Cook County with her, but it only lasted her for a short time. And yes, I was able to like get pills from that lady, Big Baby, but she found me after I got fucked up, and like she knew I had money, and Svetlana like didn't have any money when she came in. I like knew to bring money with me because I had read about what I was supposed to do and what I needed, but she just got arrested when she went to court. So she didn't fucking have anything with her. And I agreed to buy her some pills because otherwise she was going to go through some pretty serious detox and withdrawals. So I got her some like oxys after her heroin supply ran out, but I don't think it was enough. And her body went through withdrawal to the point where she ended up having a seizure in her jail cell. And if you wonder about the medical protocol in Cook County, it's go fuck yourself. You know, if you die, you die, because it's not our fucking problem. So it took 17 minutes for the staff to get a stretcher and some sort of medic to her jail cell from the time she started seizing, which was honestly the scariest fucking shit that I've ever seen. It was like that scene in Pulp Fiction where I'm just like, this bitch just fucking died in front of me, and they wheeled her out, and I never saw her again in Cook County. So I was completely convinced, because nobody gave me any information and I never saw her again while I was there, that she was dead. I thought that I watched this girl die in front of me, and she was like someone that I had just spent the last 10 days with, like getting to know, being completely enamored with. She would like pluck my eyebrows and rub my back, and we would like take off our socks and like touch our feet together. I know that sounds weird, but that's the kind of stuff that we would do. So it was like I was watching my best friend die in front of me. I mean, okay, Hannah's my best friend. I would literally die if Hannah died in front of me, so it wasn't that bad. But I watched this girl seize, and then I watched her face turn blue, and then I watched her stop breathing, and then I watched them wheel her away. For all I fucking knew, she was dead. And the reason I spent so long in Cook County is because I was waiting to get on a bus that would take me to Dwight, and I had heard how much better prison was. I had heard all of these things that made me feel like that's where I wanted to be, because the food was bad, the people were crazy, the couldn't fucking go outside, and they would tell me, these other inmates would tell me about what prison was like, and, you know, just talk about almost like a fucking like Club Med. Like that's what they made it sound like compared to where we were. But we were waiting, I was waiting for a bus to take me there, because the maximum security prison that I would get sent to so that I could get my placement was about 2-3 hours away from Chicago. So what happens when you go from a county jail to an actual prison is they send you to one prison that's like the prison where you get your number, and your number is like where you get your security clearance, and your security clearance dictates what prison you end up spending all of your time at. So it's like minimum, medium, maximum. So the maximum security prison is where they send every single prisoner first before they either keep you at maximum or send you to minimum or medium security. Now, obviously I was minimum security. I mean, no question, first time nonviolent offender, very short amount of time to do. I was definitely going to minimum security prison. However, I got sent to max first. And the way that I got there was this fucking 3-hour bus ride. And every week this bus would come and it would pick up like 100 people. But every week for 3.5 months, I was conveniently left off of this list. And it was so frustrating. You know, first it was because I got the shit kicked out of me, and I was like going through all that investigation of like, are you going to press charges? Are you going to do that? And then there were all these other like bullshit reasons that were completely arbitrary that the staff members at Cook County were controlling. So they would take my name off of the list every week, and I would get fucked with, and I would get beaten up. And I was so angry and frustrated that by the time, 3 months had gone by, I called my uncle, my lawyer uncle, and I complained, I like called the manager because I'm white. And I complained, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? Because I thought that I wanted to get out of Cook County and go to prison. I was like itching to get out of there. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to take that fucking bus ride so that I could look out the window at that 2-lane highway that goes downstate to Illinois. There's fucking nothing there, but I wanted that so bad. I could taste it. So my uncle called the warden, and he called in some favors from other staff members that he was semi-affiliated with. And the next week I was put on that bus. Oh, man. I wish I wouldn't have complained. Hindsight is 2020. I fucking wish that I wouldn't have done everything that I've ever done. It's all coming down to survival. Like, it's just instinct, survival, torture, rape, being starved and beaten. And that's what the next 7 months are going to be. Season 2. Stick around.